Hey there. Welcome to Becoming More Me, the podcast for busy minded entrepreneurs that want to be more and do less. I'm Teresa Lear Levine. I'm your host. These episodes are here to inspire you to become more of the person you feel called to be in this world and to let it be easy, darn it. Whew. I am an EFT master practitioner, a hypnotherapist, and the international best-selling author of Becoming More Me, Tapping into Success, Subconscious Secrets of an ADHD Entrepreneurial Mom. And my jam is helping you get out of your own way and shed light on your shadows so that you can really make this never-ending journey of becoming more you, one that you really want to and enjoy getting present for. My guest today is Dr. Jill Wener. She is a coach and consultant specializing in trauma-informed healing and advocacy. She's an entrepreneur and business owner. She teaches EFT tapping, and she is a meditation expert as well. She provides anti-racism education and consulting, which I love because I don't think we have ever specifically dug into that topic on this show, and I'm really excited for it. She's nationally renowned as an expert in physician wellness, and she has led physician wellness programs and lectured around the country. Jill believes in taking a trauma-informed approach and is committed to providing and being a safe, judgment-free space for people and groups to make real strides towards the lives they've always wanted, but maybe felt too disconnected to live. She believes everyone deserves to have easy-to-use tools to heal and manage burnout, daily stressors, significant life changes, trauma, and PTSD, interpersonal relationships, distressing political events, social justice concerns, and more. Amen to that. Jill is also the host of the Conscious Anti-Racism podcast, and she's the co-author of the best-selling book, Conscious Anti-Racism: Tools for Self-Discovery, Accountability, and Meaningful Change. Ooh, I cannot wait to dive into this one. It all starts now. Hey, Jill. Thanks so much for joining me today. I'm glad you're here.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. So I always like to dive in with the stuff that's not on our bio or our business resume and just get to know you a little bit more. If you wouldn't mind sharing a little bit about, where you live, who you spend your time with, maybe even some hobbies or things that you enjoy, that would be a great way to start us off.
Oh, I love that. I live in Atlanta. I grew up here. My family moved here from Canada when I was 2 months old. So it's basically been home. And after being away for about 15 years, I moved back in 2016. I am married as of a little over a year ago, and I have
Congrats.
thank you, two
Still a
step kiddos.
newlywed.
Yeah. I have two step kids, boy girl twins, and I also have boy girl twin niece and nephew who are 18 and about to graduate from high school. So my
Oh,
life seems
cool.
to be full of that. Um, and yeah, I like doing yoga. I love traveling. Spend a lot of time probably with my husband. I have friends too, but it just didn't happen that way. Life, particularly when there's kids involved.
Yeah.
Um, I love cooking. I love eating out. And I don't know. I think that's probably a good start.
Absolutely. I love all of those things too. So, yes, congrats again on your wedding. That's really exciting. And yeah, we're both EFT practitioners. So, I know that was fun when we first met and talked, kind of comparing notes there. Could you tell us a little bit about how you originally found EFT and what kind of a impact it had on your own personal transformation?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So I guess sort of to kind of give a little bit of background, I got certified to teach a type of meditation that is called Vedic meditation or similar to transcendental meditation.
Yes.
And I spent 3 months in India doing this teacher training, being like extraordinarily brainwashed into believing that meditation would fix everything. And that like, because I did this teacher training, we were like the pinnacles of humanity. Like, and we ate it up. I mean, we questioned a lot of stuff, but by the end of it, you're just like drinking the Kool-Aid completely. So I had in my mind that I was supposed to like be fully actualized adult human, and that if I had issues, that I should just like needed to meditate more or something. but that I shouldn't really have issues. And then, so with that background, I was teaching meditation at a conference for women physicians. And the other speakers for that conference were a psychiatrist and a psychologist who um, taught about tapping and heart math, I think is what it's called,
Okay.
and a couple other similar type of techniques that they used for their trauma patients at the VA. So
Oh, cool.
very kind of clinical background of how they were using it. And I thought it was really cool. They had us try it out. I didn't really have great results trying it out, but I was trying to like process this like massive end to a friendship that certainly wasn't going to like end, me tapping with like a worksheet and or maybe a partner for 10 minutes wasn't going to
Right.
that completely.
I'm not going to
And
support
I
quite
thought,
enough.
you know what, maybe I'll be a teacher in this one day. Like I never was like, oh, I need it for me, because at that time I still was like a perfect specimen of humanity.
Of
Um,
course.
and then my whole meditation community fell apart around Me Too stuff and just kind of realizing the kind of not the problem with the meditation, but the problem with the community and some of the teachers within the community. And that was completely devastating to me. And I felt so alone and like I couldn't tell anyone because I was supposed to be perfect and I was supposed to be happy all the time. And I felt like if I talked about it, then I would somehow be like discrediting what it is that I teach. And I didn't
Ooh.
medicine, teach meditation, but I chose not to go back to my medical career
So
because I want
like shame plus imposterism
yeah, totally.
igniting.
Exactly, exactly. And I was in a networking group for meditation, and everyone always wanted to connect me to everyone else they knew who did. I don't know if you have a better term than woo woo. I don't like woo woo, but anyone who did anything that was like remotely off the beaten track. And they connected me with this woman who was a tapping practitioner. And I had coffee with her, and whatever, something about her, I just like spilled my guts. And she was like, let
It
me
was the
do,
coffee versus the Kool-Aid.
right, exactly, exactly, exactly. She's like, just let me do one tapping session with you, just let me try one tapping session with you. And I had done a couple other energy healing type things around it and nothing had helped. I did
Yeah.
one session with her and I felt like myself for the first time in months. And it was just like so I was like, sign me up for whatever it is that you've got. I am absolutely like,
What do you think it was? What felt so pivotal about that particular session? Like now, especially that you're a practitioner, like can you rewind and figure out like what it was that she hooked
so
into?
interesting. I think part of it was her intuition of kind of being able to some of the tapping phrases that she came up with were like
Sure.
the things that I didn't even know I needed to say out loud and like
Yeah.
process. And then I think, I mean, it's always funny when you're tapping. I'm sure this happens to you. People are like, I just need to say this out loud. It wasn't the tapping, it was just
Yeah.
saying it out loud. And I know it's not. And there were just parts of me that like I had been keeping inside for so long that being able to talk about that and emotionally regulate
Sure.
with someone who I felt safe with, who seemed to get me, who was like, how did you know? Like, I think that was probably
So
the
huge.
magical combination of it was the kind of psychological safety, feeling heard and understood, and then being able to
Yeah.
actually vocalize the things that I had been keeping inside for so long.
Absolutely. And I didn't mean to interrupt the rest of your story. So you had this pivotal moment with her, and then you wanted to sign
Yeah.
up and do all the things.
So yeah, so I signed up for one of her packages and we like tapped through some of that whole trauma. And then I have, notoriously been attracting all sorts of horrible partners into my life. And so we did some work on self-limiting beliefs around relationships and I,
Yeah.
as I realized plenty of them. And then I started dating my now husband while we were tapping. And so she was like, well, even if he's not the one, like we can still work through some of the stuff that comes up at the
Yes.
beginning of a relationship with someone. And
It's always
so
great when you have that too. Like I love
Mhm.
that as a practitioner when somebody's actually going through the thing, taking
Right.
the actions and whatever, because whether it works out or it doesn't, it still provides excellent data for transformation.
Totally, totally. And then it was just like, I would get all mad that he wasn't texting me enough when he was on vacation. And then I would tap on it and I was like, nah, this isn't about him. This is about me and my mom or me and something, like I was like, he actually texted me 3 times this morning. And so I was like telling myself these stories that would, get myself worked up. And then through tapping either on my own or with her, kind of realize I'm safe. I'm okay. These things have been scary for me before, but I'm okay, and I deserve to be okay. And I deserve to, we totally, I think, reprogrammed all of my, I don't know if reprogram is the right word, but like
Yeah, I think it is. I
I
think of what's
eliminated.
happening around here a lot like a computer. I think
Yeah.
reprogramming is pretty right on, even though we're not computers. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, and so before you were doing all this, you were practicing internal medicine, right?
Yeah.
What
That's
kind
right.
of things were you doing in your work before you started using EFT more prominently and doing all this anti-racism and all this other
Yeah,
stuff
yeah,
that you're
yeah.
doing?
So I left my medical job in 2015 because I had a chance to move to China for a the one who got away relationship that ended up completely crashing and burning, but it served the purpose that it needed to serve. So I left my job to like move to China with this guy because he was a diplomat based in China, and like live my best life, and then go to my meditation teacher training in India for 3 months, and then go
Gotcha.
back to China and like live life as a diplomat's wife. Um, Not that I cared about that, but that was like literally what I would have been doing. Things didn't work out with us. So after I did my meditation teacher training, I ended up coming back to Atlanta. And I haven't been practicing medicine since then. So all the tapping, all the anti-racism work all came kind of after I had transitioned out. But for 10 years, 9, 10 years, I worked in an inpatient setting in Chicago, taking care of patients who were hospitalized with pneumonia and kidney failure and liver disease and heart, congestive heart failure, skin infections, all, you name it, HIV, all this kind of stuff. Um, and also doing education for medical students and residents. So I kind of loved my job. I mean, it was really stressful, but it was like
Sure.
happy enough, certainly for a lifetime, if I didn't have this other thing to pull me away from the job to go live a bigger life, different life.
Yeah. Yeah. So what was it specifically that kind of led you from that focus in internal medicine to more of that like trauma-informed healing and empowerment energy that you're in now?
I think that the anti-racism work for me started in 2016. And then the anti-racism work as it pertains to, and I became a tapping practitioner in 2019. So there's a lot of trauma informedness that comes with tapping.
Yeah.
It wasn't as explicit in the education I had received to that point. And then in 2020, I did a couple more clinical trainings that had a lot of stuff about trauma in there. And then I started having these realizations like, while a lot of people were having their own kind of racial reckoning in 2020 because of George Floyd's murder, my like leading edge at that point was starting to apply all of that into the meditation community and learning about spiritual bypassing more and toxic positivity and um, cultural appropriation and all the ways that I, as a meditation teacher, had been kind of causing, even though I'd already left my community at that point, there's just kind of like a mindset that can be propagated in some Western spiritual spaces, maybe also Eastern, but certainly in some Western
Sure.
spiritual spaces. And so I kind of wanted to learn more about what it meant to be trauma informed and how to teach meditation from a trauma informed lens. And that kind of started that whole thing, kind of realizing, wow, we were taught nothing about trauma in our meditation teacher training, and like how to teach in a trauma informed way, like none of it. So kind of unlearning and relearning how I teach
Yeah.
in meditation spaces. And then also it applies to, everything pretty much.
And then now, do you work mainly with people who are in the healthcare profession?
I, I'd say I'm now only teach meditation about once a year because I just do on retreats that I do for women in healthcare. So I would say most of the people I'm teaching meditation to at this point are in healthcare. Um, I would say, and like my tapping, I don't know, my clients are probably 40% healthcare in general. The anti-racism work, we're probably split 50-50 between healthcare and non-healthcare.
Gotcha. Yeah, I wasn't sure if that overlapped or not. So, what really piqued your interest in anti-racism work? I don't think that's a topic that we've ever like specifically dug into on this show. I'd
Mm,
love to hear more about it. And
sure, sure. Well, I was kind of looking back, I can say a little tongue in cheek, like a well-intending white woman, like who was like, I'm totally against racism, like very much like knew that racism was bad and would never do anything intentionally harmful, not
Right.
having any idea the way I was walking through life and causing harm. And I got called in slash called out about a blog post that I wrote after the 2016 election. And I was told that my blog post was very privileged. And I had written it from my like, I'm a meditation teacher, I'm so wise perspective, my spiritual perspective. And looking back, it's the cringiest thing I've ever read in my life. But at the time, I thought it was like brilliant. And she sent me an article, and the title of my blog post was, We're going to be okay, I promise. And she sent me an article written by a Black man that said, Dear white people, please stop telling me we're going to be okay. And I was like, oh, okay. So I started reading. I wanted to prove her wrong. I was like, I'm not privileged. What are you talking about? I'm not racist. I had no idea. And the more I read, the more I realized she was absolutely right. And I had so much to learn. And I think that because of all the meditation I had done, I hadn't even met tapping yet, but because of all the meditation I had been doing, my brain was used to like, I was just, I think I was more receptive to new information, and I was much more resilient in terms of like being able to be wrong. And it's something I actually really enjoy, is being wrong, being just like, all right, you got me, like I'm going to learn. And so I think that that allowed me to stay in it when I had the privilege of deciding to stop doing that work. It helped me stay in it. It helped me keep staying engaged and deal with my own emotions and discomfort as it came up, as it does, which it will always come up for anybody doing, not just white people, for anybody talking about race. um I think the mind body practices really helped me stick with it
Yeah,
and
for
stay regulated.
sure. Yeah, give you a little more capacity
Yeah,
for handling it for sure. So there was that incident, and I guess you could say like that blog post is a great thing that you wrote it because it led you through all these other
right,
things. But what inspired you to like stick with it? I mean, you have like a whole podcast around,
right.
anti-racism. You've co-authored a book, Conscious Anti-Racism: Tools for Self-Discovery, Accountability, and Meaningful Change. So, what has kept you like passionate about this?
I think well, I did a training in 2019, like an allyship training, and we were supposed to like come up with the project. And my project was like, with the help of the women who, the two Black women who facilitated the training, was like, how can I use the mind body tools that I know and like bring in other people I know who do similar but different things? How can I help to teach white people to like regulate themselves and learn what they need to learn in a way that doesn't harm people who are living the experience of racism? Because what can tend to happen, if anyone listening is not aware, like well-attending white people come into spaces and they kind of like ask a bunch of questions that may cause harm to the Black people or other people there. We make it about us, we might get emotional, and then the people feel like they have to comfort us, and it sort of like takes the attention off of the actual issue, which is the racism. And so my goal was to like help white people deal with our stuff and not have Black people have to do that emotional labor. Because if you've ever been involved in
Yeah.
explaining something over and over again to people that has caused you harm, it's really, really challenging. And so that's kind of how it started. And I didn't know what I was doing with it. I mean, I was like, I'm supposed to do this. I know I'm supposed to do this work. I love this work. But like before I went to the training, I was like, am I supposed to be an activist? Like, are they gonna, I don't know. Like, I don't know her. Like, I don't know who that person is. What are they gonna expect from me? And so, but the training was completely life-changing. It was called Allies in Action. Leslie Mack and Paige Ingram ran it. And at that point, I was like, all right, I'm all in. And then I was trying to put together like a Facebook group, and I thought, okay, I'm going to make an online course, and I'm going to recruit different people who have different mindfulness skills, like an energy healer. So we'll all put together this course that white people can take and like, again, learn the things that we want them to learn. And then we'll donate like a lot of the proceeds to anti-racism organizations so that it's not like I'm profiteering off of this. And then like all was well and good. Then George Floyd got murdered, all of that, all, all the other police brutality that was happening.
Yeah.
And I had started to put the online course into a book. And then right before that, like in March, right before COVID, I connected with Maisha, who's my business partner in conscious anti-racism. And she's like, you kind of got to do that. Like, she was like, you seem legit. You seem like you really care and you really want to do this work, but you kind of have to do this work with someone who's Black. Like, you can't do it alone as a white woman. And I was like, I know, but like, who? Like, why
Who
would
will
anyone?
have me?
Yeah, like I wouldn't work with me. I don't know. I just didn't think that
I
I
wouldn't work with
earned
me.
that, had earned that or anything. And so we kind of discussed whether, she would be the person. And I think she was kind of like not expecting herself to become more of an activist. She did her own work internally in her community, but not externally. And so a couple months later, we were like, let's do this all in. So she added modules to the course, she added to the book. And so our first work together was a little bit of a hodgepodge of my stuff plus her stuff. And now it's our stuff, but it was kind of an evolution through that. And then I think for me, like, I don't know, I once it's internalized, like as it's been internalized for me, yes, there are going to be times where I go on vacation and I'm not teaching about racism, like, but I'm always thinking about it, and I'm always thinking about how am I in the world, and what can I do? Because it wouldn't feel right. It wouldn't feel like I wouldn't feel like I had integrity, or it wouldn't
Yeah.
resonate with my integrity if I didn't do it. But it took a while. I mean, I came and went from it for a while, because that's, I think, what people who look like me have the privilege of doing, is saying, oh, this is uncomfortable. I'm going to put this down for a little while because I want to, you know, life's busy. I want to think about other things, or I don't have the space for this right now. And so it took a while for me to get to the point where I was in it for good, for the long haul.
What are some things that you think would really help people who might not be as involved or present to racism in the way that you are to be more conscious about anti-racism and to show up a little bit differently in this world?
That's a great question. I mean, I think there's what it really comes down to is educating ourselves first.
Sure.
And if they are, I'm using the possessive pronoun, personal pronoun. I don't remember what it's called, but I'm not saying your, I'm not saying their, I'm saying our, because I am always going to be living in a white body, and I'm always going to be contending with what that where that puts me in our crazy society,
Sure.
and what I've been like indoctrinated into. And I think it's important for us to educate ourselves, to do the work, to like learn, to read books, to and not just do that, but we don't I don't really recommend like getting started in the work without preparing yourself, because that's when we say the things that are really offensive or really harmful. That's when we feel really bad about what we said. Then we say, why is everyone getting so sensitive? Or why is whatever? So Maisha and I teach tools like the, the tools we teach work for people of all identities. They're just kind of applied differently, but it's like, but, like, do not pass go, do not collect 200 until you have learned these tools to learn how to regulate yourself, whatever that looks like. And that's why we use tapping in our training. That's why we use shadow work and self-compassion work, and ways to connect in with the body, in addition to communication and learning about actual racism. So
Yeah.
I love our course. I think we have an online course. I think it's amazing. And you don't have to start there. People don't have to start there. They can start with anything, but just kind of reading books, preferably books that are like provocative and going to
Yeah.
make us wonder, like, see the world in a different way. And the other advice I would say is, no matter how good we want to think we are, and maybe are, we are all part of the problem. And so to start thinking about the problem not being out there, but to seeing ourselves as part of that, not as a personal judgment, not as
Right.
a bad, good, whatever, to just as a fact. And then
Sure.
like, what do we do from there? Because I mean, I mess up all the time.
Yeah.
And and that's just part of it. And I think when we take the taboo out of some of the words, and take the taboo out of some of the real understanding the realities of this world, it's like, okay, then what?
Are there any, like, I don't know, questions, tips, tricks that you've figured out that help people to locate more of the ways that they are perhaps being unconsciously racist?
Um,
Little, like, I don't know, self-awareness sort of questions that we can be asking ourselves to kind of
it's a
root
good
out those things?
I mean, I think the first thing that's coming to me is I wish it was that easy.
Agreed.
And I find myself wanting to ask that same question. Okay, like what are the five things that I need to know? And I think,
Recognizing that any of it's a starting point, not a
yeah,
absolute.
and if you're uncomfortable, you're in the right place. That is probably learning
Yeah.
to say, okay, what is happening inside my body right now? Like, and if we don't connect in, I mean, the first time I tapped, she's like, where do you feel it in your body? And I was like, come again? What do you mean feel it in my body? I did not have a connection into my
Wow.
physical sensations of my body. That's just how like removed I was from it. So however we connect with our emotions,
Colonized.
whether it's in our body or not, if you're comfortable, we're not learning enough. If we're looking for things to validate us in our position, we're not really doing the work. So what can we, who can we follow? And I mean, that would be one thing I would say is like social media, like follow a bunch of people who don't look like you. Or, and when I'm saying you, I mean the global you. Follow a bunch of people who don't look like you, who have different perspectives from you, not like hateful things. Like I'm not going to go follow a bunch of people who I think are racist so that I can learn from them, but like
Right.
follow people who look different, follow people who have fat are in fat bodies, follow people who are trans, who are black, who are Asian, whatever else. So to kind of, you're not scrolling your feed only seeing white faces,
Yeah.
thin white faces or whatever
Mm.
normative we're used to. And then what books are we reading? What TV shows are we watching? And I think those are even ways to start. It's not enough. Like I think saying, oh, I read this book and that book and that book, therefore I'm not part of the problem. That's not, that's not it. Um,
No. Not really
and
applying the knowledge to life.
yeah, and it's a start. We educate the same way we're going to do research on a car before we buy it, or we're going to look
Yeah.
about, get an inspection of the house before we buy it. Like we gotta get in there and do stuff and learning to be okay with discomfort. And that I think is a huge, if we can do that, even though everything in society is telling us that we shouldn't do that, that discomfort is bad, if we can learn to be sit with discomfort and to like learn from it, I think that is one of the biggest gifts that we can give ourselves.
Most definitely.
Not to
Discomfort and resistance usually have some pretty big
yeah,
gifts to give us when
yeah.
we're willing to lean into them. So obviously your book would be a great place to start. Do you have any other like favorite book recommendations for people who want to begin learning in that way?
Sure. I think it's a book called Me and White Supremacy by Layla Saad, Saad.
Mhm.
The word white supremacy is also something we just need to get over. White supremacy culture, it's something that sounds very scary and it sounds very out there and very like fringe. It means what we think it means, but it also doesn't mean what we think it means. And so just learning that like it's a culture rather than it being an organization of people who wear white hoods. That's also
Yeah.
part of it, but it's a culture. So Me and White Supremacy, don't be put off by the title because it actually makes a lot of sense. That's a really good one. There's a book called How to Have Anti-Racist Conversations that um, I'm just looking at my books right here. I am horribly forgetting the name of the actress, the writer. I had her on my podcast, but
You talk, I'll look it up.
I've been on 4 meetings in a row, so my
What
brain
was it
can't.
called? How to have anti-racist conversations?
Um, she's incredible. Um, anything by
Roxy
Westman.
Manning.
Yes, Roxy Manning. Yeah, she's
Yes, the subtitle is Embracing Our Full Humanity to Challenge White Supremacy for anyone who's wanting to look that up.
yeah, she's amazing. I think so I think those are two
Good
good
places to
places to
start.
start. And then there's one other one, um, The Sum of Us by I want to say Heather McGee, could
I
be wrong.
got you.
Of Us is not, it's not, doesn't do any
You're
hip work.
right, Heather McGee.
doesn't do any of the personal work, but it kind of helps to see how like racism is literally
Yep.
behind everything, healthcare, education, all of this. Like
Yep. The sum of us, what racism costs everyone, and how we can prosper together.
such a good book. So those are some books that I really love. Resma Menachem talks a lot about In My Grandmother's Hands about racialized trauma and how that lands for different people in different ways. Um, and that book is excellent as well.
Awesome. Very cool. So these days, what is the exact way you're showing up and doing your work and applying this to the world?
I would say tapping is like at the forefront of all of
Yeah.
it. One of the things that I love about tapping is that it's like it can be everything. I could be like a manifestation guru and I could be using tapping as my main thing. I could be, doing anti-racism work. I can be doing cancer diet survival work. Like
Yes.
all of it can be
Physical, emotional, spiritual, mental, it just runs the gamut.
all of it. And so I think
I
for
is a
me,
favorite of mine too.
what's been great about tapping is that it's a way for me to contribute in spaces where I am, you know, the white lady sometimes who's like, do I deserve to be here? Like, like it's a way for me to contribute without, while still being like, yeah, I'm this white person and I've lived as a white person. And there's all these wonderful people here who are in different colored bodies than mine and have so much to contribute. So it's helped me, like, I can bring so much into spaces. I can help people, heal from their own traumas. I can help people regulate themselves, working even with groups of like facilitators, helping to kind of with sustainability of the movements. Um, there's a lot of different ways that I can bring that in.
Yeah. What
And
do you see
then,
as like the big impact when you're doing tapping in group like that with people and working on anti-racism with EFT?
gosh, I mean, in the group setting, like just for people who are doing this work all the time, and I would consider myself to be one of them, except I don't then have to have the lived experience of racism when I leave work. So to be doing that work all the time, whatever your skin color is, it's like there's like setback after setback after setback. And there can be a lot of really wonderful victories too, but it can be really hard kind of hearing and experiencing and being in what can be very toxic. And so it can really help just bring some peace, like when people are feeling very burnt out or very overwhelmed by the emotions or just dysregulated, it can just kind of bring this like sense of calm to a space, particularly doing it in a group setting.
Yeah,
And I think like a bit of team building as well, which can be really nice. It's okay to cry. It's okay to still be human, remembering that we're all human bodies doing this work, doing whatever we do, we are all still human and we don't have to, sometimes we have to be strong and get through stuff, but that's not how we necessarily need to want to always be.
right.
So allowing ourselves to catch up with our feelings and feel everything that we feel, because I think so much of us, so many of us, so much of our culture is training us to not feel things that are bad,
For
bad,
sure, for
bad.
sure. And I do love that EFT allows us to just rock the negative side of things, ride it out until it becomes more genuinely positive and we're actually feeling that way instead of just trying to make ourselves feel that way. So that's awesome. What would you say, like, what initiatives or future projects are you the most excited about right now?
In my own world, I have been doing a train the trainer program that kind of teach people on a very introductory level how to bring tapping into their organizations, and it just got accredited for continuing medical education. So I'm
Lovely.
super excited about that. So that's kind of what I'm really looking to bring to more people, so that it's not just me going into all these places and teaching it, but empowering people with their own tools for
Yeah,
themselves, also professionally. So I think that's the thing that I'm in my own Jill Wener only business, very excited about. And then Maisha and I have um a lot of really exciting work. Oh, here, another thing that's very exciting is we did a study with our anti-racism course and a child psychiatry unit in Seattle to try to decrease the numbers of restraints used on their Black patients, which was like over to like 43% of patients compared to 18% of their white patients.
Wow.
And it like eliminated the disparities. It actually, by having over half their unit their staff take our course, it eliminated the disparities. And this was a couple years ago, and we're still working with them, but they actually got a paper, they wrote a paper about it and it got accepted. So that'll be coming out soon. So
Congrats.
intervention will be published, which will be really exciting. So I think those are the two big things going on right now.
I love that. A beautiful impact. What a great ripple effect of the work that you're doing. And oh, thank you so much for sharing that. Where can people find you if they want to learn more or connect?
My website is probably the best place, jillwener.com, Wener with no I, Wener. And then I'm on Instagram and LinkedIn. Those are pretty much the only ones I use. I'm at Jill Wener, MD for both of those. And I think those are probably the best place, but my website will, get anyone where they need to go. It's got all the different stuff that I do.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much for being here. Are there any closing thoughts or last things you'd like to add before we wrap things up?
Um, I, I think it's so much fun connecting with other tapping practitioners and kind of hearing the way it's used and the changes that it helps people. I'm not
That is
even
so
using
cool. And
but the
because you can do it on everything, like there's so many of us that are using it in different ways, like you, and there's room for all of us, and the world needs more of us.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And so it's really cool getting to kind of explore all of our different approaches to this wonderful technique, which definitely changed my life for sure. And it is something that I just really love.
Amazing. Well, thanks again for being here. And thank you all for listening. I know you have many choices when it comes to the podcasts you choose to listen to. And I thank you for choosing Becoming More Me. Have a wonderful day. Thanks for spending some of your precious time with me today. If you loved this episode, please leave a review or simply share it with someone else who would get great benefit from it too. If you share on social media, please tag me so I can personally connect and thank you. Until next time, keep taking bold and brave steps towards becoming more of who you want to be in this world. You are capable, you are worthy, and you are enough. And if your inner critic is still trying to argue with those facts, hit me up. We've got work to do.